What advice did you follow that everyone thought was stupid? My grandfather told me, start buying comic books now while they're cheap. Kids don't read anymore, so shops are desperate to sell. One day, these will be worth more than gold. When I was 19, I had just gotten my first real paycheck from my warehouse job, and everyone was telling me to invest in stocks or crypto like a normal person. My friends were all putting money into tech companies and bragging about their portfolio gains. They'd show off their trading apps and talk about getting rich quick with the latest cryptocurrency trends. But Grandpa pulled me aside during Christmas dinner and walked me to his basement storage room. He showed me boxes of comic books from the 1960s that he'd been collecting since he was a teenager. I bought these for 12 cents each at the corner store, he said, holding up a pristine Spider-Man issue. Last month, a collector offered me $15,000 for this one book. Your generation thinks everything has to be digital, but physical items become rare. That conversation changed everything for me. Instead of putting my money into some app, I started visiting every comic book shop within driving distance. The owners were always complaining about how business was dying because kids only wanted video games and smartphones. I focused on buying complete runs of popular series from the 1980s and 90s that were still affordable. X-Men, Batman, Superman, stuff that was popular but not yet considered vintage. I'd spend entire weekends driving to comic conventions and estate sales, filling my car with boxes of books that dealers were practically giving away. My friends thought I was completely insane. They'd come over and see my apartment filled with comic book storage boxes instead of furniture. You're hoarding paper, one friend said. At least my crypto can't get damaged by water or torn by accident. Another kept saying I was living like a weird collector instead of a normal adult. The worst part was dating. Girls would come over and see thousands of comic books organized by series and publication date. Most of them thought I was some kind of antisocial nerd who never grew up. I got really good at explaining that it was an investment strategy, but they'd just nod politely and never call again. For 3 years, I kept buying while my friends mocked my paper collection. They were making money on their investments and constantly rubbing it in my face. How's your comic book retirement plan going? They'd joke. Maybe you can trade some Spider-Man issues for a down payment on a house. Then, something amazing happened. Marvel and DC movies started dominating Hollywood. Suddenly, characters that had been niche for decades were mainstream cultural icons. Everyone wanted to own the first appearances of heroes they were seeing on the big screen. Comic book prices exploded overnight. Issues I'd bought for $5 were selling for hundreds. Complete series I'd assembled for under $100 were worth thousands. The market got so hot that investment firms started buying comic books as alternative assets. I sold my first major collection to a dealer for $50,000. Used that money to buy even rarer books from the 1970s that I'd never been able to afford before. Within 2 years, I was making more money flipping comic books than my friends were making at their regular jobs. The best part was when my friend who'd been the most critical asked if I could help him get into comic investing. I didn't realize this stuff was actually valuable, he admitted. Can you teach me which ones to buy? I told him he'd missed the boat on the easy money, but I could show him the ropes. Now I own a comic book store and deal with collectors worldwide. My friends are still checking their stock apps every morning, stressed about market volatility. Meanwhile, I'm holding physical assets that get more valuable as they become scarcer. Grandpa was absolutely right about everything.